Alex Reed stood in the long white hallway of the Galactic Defense Academy holding his first assignment papers with shaking hands. The metal walls were so clean they looked like mirrors, and the bright lights made everything look cold and strange. He had just finished his basic training last week, and now he was being sent to the most important starship in the entire fleet called the GDS Harmony. Other new soldiers would be jealous of such a good assignment, but Alex knew there was something wrong with it. The problem was not the ship itself, but who he was being paired with. Standing next to him was Coda, a large brown dog with bright intelligent eyes and a collar that had small lights blinking on it. The dog was not just any normal pet, though. Scientists on Earth had changed his body and brain to make him stronger, faster, and smarter than regular dogs. But to all the alien species in the galaxy, Coda was still just a dumb animal that humans kept around for no good reason. Alex walked through the academy halls with Coda following close behind him. Other students and teachers looked at them with curious eyes. The alien students were much more impressive than Alex felt. There were the Valdorians, who had crystal-like things growing from their heads that helped them think faster than any computer. Their skin was pale blue, and they never seemed to show any emotions on their faces. Then there were the Thrakari, who were tall and strong with 4 arms instead of 2. Their skin looked like it was made of thick armor, and they had scars from many battles. The Inhali were the strangest ones because they did not speak with words, but instead used colored lights that appeared on their skin to talk to each other. All of these alien species thought humans were the newest and least important members of the Galactic Coalition. They had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, while humans had only learned how to leave Earth. About 50 years ago. To them, humans were like children who had just learned to walk and were not ready for real work. When Alex and Coda reached the transport dock, they met Commander Voss, who would be their new boss on the Harmony. The commander was a Thrakari who stood almost 8 feet tall with muscles that looked like they could crush rocks. His 4 arms were covered in old battle scars, and his eyes were dark red like burning coals. When he looked down at Alex and Coda, his face showed nothing but disappointment. "So this is what Command has sent me," Commander Voss said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "A rookie human and his pet dog. What am I supposed to do with you two?" Alex tried to stand up straighter and look more like a real soldier. "Sir, I have completed all my training courses and I scored in the top 10% of my class. I am ready to serve on the Harmony." Commander Voss made a sound that might have been laughing, but it was not a happy sound. "Training courses mean nothing in real space, boy. You have never faced a real enemy or been in a real battle. And that thing next to you is just a waste of food and air." Coda did not react to the insult, but Alex felt his face get hot with anger. He wanted to tell the commander that Coda was not just a pet, but he knew it would only make things worse. Instead, he kept his mouth shut and waited for orders. "You will be assigned to observation duty in the deep space sectors," Commander Voss continued. "Your job is to watch empty space and report anything unusual. It is perfect work for someone who is not ready for real missions. Maybe after a few months of staring at stars, you will learn what it means to be a real soldier." Other alien crew members who were waiting nearby heard what the commander said and started making quiet sounds that Alex realized were their way of laughing. A group of Valdorians tilted their crystal heads toward each other, and their faces showed what looked like amusement. Some Inhali nearby had bright yellow patterns dancing on their skin, which Alex had learned meant they found something funny. Alex felt his face turn red with embarrassment, but he saluted the commander and said, "Yes, sir, I understand." Commander Voss waved one of his 4 hands toward the transport ship. "Get aboard. Someone will show you to your quarters when we reach the Harmony. Try not to get lost on the way there." The transport ship was small and cramped with seats that were made for alien bodies, not human ones. Alex had to squeeze into a space that was too narrow while Coda lay down on the floor next to him. The other passengers were all experienced soldiers and crew members who talked in their strange languages and ignored the human and his dog completely during the 6-hour flight to the Harmony. Alex tried to read the ship manuals and study the crew assignments, but he kept getting distracted by worry. He had dreamed of serving on a great starship since he was a child, but he had imagined himself doing important work and earning respect from his fellow crew members. Instead, he was being sent to watch empty space with no chance to prove himself. When they finally arrived at the Harmony, Alex was amazed by how huge and beautiful the ship was. It was over 2 miles long and had hundreds of levels with thousands of crew members from dozens of different species. The hallways were wide and clean, with moving walkways that carried people from one section to another. Everything looked advanced and important, but when Alex and Coda were shown to their quarters, his heart sank. They had been given a converted storage room that was barely big enough for 2 people. There was one small bed, a tiny desk, and a food dispenser that only had basic human meals. The walls were gray metal, and there were no windows or decorations. It was clear that they were not considered important enough for real crew quarters. Alex sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the small room. Coda jumped up next to him and rested his head on Alex's leg. The dog's tail wagged slowly as if he was trying to cheer up his human friend. "Well, boy," Alex said quietly while scratching behind Coda's ears, "looks like we are on our own out here. Nobody thinks we belong on this ship, but we are going to prove them wrong somehow." Coda's tail wagged a little faster, and his bright eyes looked up at Alex with an expression that seemed to say he was ready for whatever came next. Alex did not know it yet, but those intelligent eyes held secrets that would soon change everything. 3 weeks had passed since Alex and Coda started their boring job of watching empty space. Every day was the same routine of sitting in the observation deck and staring at computer screens that showed nothing but stars and darkness. The other crew members had stopped noticing them completely, and Alex felt like he was invisible on the giant ship. The observation deck was a small room with big windows that looked out into space and computers that could detect energy signatures from very far away. Alex had learned to use all the equipment quickly, but there was never anything interesting to report. Space was mostly empty and quiet, just like everyone had told him it would be, but on this particular morning, something was different. Alex was drinking his coffee and checking the usual sensor readings when he noticed strange energy patterns appearing on his screen. The patterns were not like anything he had seen before in his training. They looked like waves of power that seemed to be moving in organized formations rather than random. Space noise. Coda was lying on the floor next to Alex's chair, but when the strange readings appeared, the dog's head lifted up and his ears stood straight. His nose twitched like he was smelling something that Alex could not detect. The dog's behavior was unusual because he normally slept during the boring observation shifts. Alex studied the energy signatures more carefully and realized they were getting stronger and more organized. Whatever was causing them was getting closer to the Harmony. He checked his equipment twice to make sure it was working properly and then decided he needed to report this to the bridge. He pressed the communication button and waited for someone to answer. After a few seconds, a Valdorian officer's voice came through the speaker. "Bridge here. What is your report?" "This is Lieutenant Reed from Observation Deck 7, Alex said, trying to sound professional. "I am detecting unusual energy signatures in Sector 12. The patterns appear to be artificial and are moving in our direction." There was a long pause before the officer responded. "Please hold while I connect you to Commander Voss." Alex waited nervously while Coda stood up and moved closer to the window. The dog was staring out into space with an intensity that made Alex uncomfortable. It was like Coda could see something that was not showing up on the sensors yet. Commander Voss's angry voice came through the speaker. "What is this about, rookie? I told you to report real problems, not every little sensor glitch you see." "Sir, I do not think this is a glitch," Alex replied. "The energy patterns are organized and getting stronger. Something is definitely out there and it is heading toward us." "Let me guess," Commander Voss said in a mocking tone. "You and your pet dog think you have discovered some kind of enemy fleet that our advanced sensors cannot detect. Is that what you are telling me?" Alex could hear other crew members laughing in the background. "Sir, I am just reporting what I am seeing on my screens. The patterns are not random and they are definitely getting closer." "Listen carefully, boy," Commander Voss said, his voice getting more angry. You are a rookie who has been in space for 3 weeks. Our ship has sensors that are 1,000 times more advanced than anything humans have ever built. If there was really something out there, we would have detected it hours ago. Stop wasting my time with your paranoid imagination and get back to work. The communication channel went dead and Alex was left staring at his screens. The energy signatures were still there and still getting stronger, but nobody would listen to him. He felt frustrated and embarrassed, but he also felt worried. His training had taught him to trust his equipment and his instincts, and both were telling him that something dangerous was approaching. That night, Alex had trouble sleeping. He kept thinking about the energy patterns and wondering if he had made a mistake. Maybe the commander was right and he was just seeing things that were not really there. Maybe he was just a nervous rookie who did not know how to read the sensors properly. Koda was restless too. The dog kept getting up and walking around their small room, sniffing at the air and making quiet whining sounds. At one point, Koda went to the door and scratched at it like he wanted to go outside. His behavior was so strange that Alex started to wonder if the dog could sense something that humans could not. Around midnight, Alex was finally starting to fall asleep when the ship's emergency alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed in the hallways and a voice over the intercom shouted, "All crew to battle stations! We are under attack!" This is not a drill. Alex jumped out of bed and grabbed his uniform and weapon. Through the small window in his room, he could see bright flashes of light in the darkness of space. Ships that looked like nothing he had ever seen before were appearing out of nowhere and firing energy weapons at the Harmony. The enemy ships were huge and covered in spikes and curved surfaces that seemed to change shape as Alex watched them. They moved in ways that should have been impossible, passing through the Harmony's defensive shields like the shields were not even there. Energy beams cut through the hull of the ship, and Alex could hear explosions echoing through the corridors. Koda was standing next to him now, his body tense and ready for action. The dog's playful personality was completely gone, replaced by something fierce and dangerous. His lips were pulled back to show his teeth, and his eyes were focused with deadly intent. "Those are the energy signatures I detected," Alex said to himself. "The things that were supposed to be my imagination." More enemy ships appeared and began launching small attack pods toward the Harmony. Alex could see the pods punching through the ship's hull and knew that enemy soldiers would soon be inside the ship. He grabbed his weapon and emergency gear while trying to think of what to do next. The ship shook violently as more energy beams hit it. Alex could hear the sounds of battle getting closer as enemy soldiers fought their way through the corridors. Screams and weapon fire echoed through the hallways, and Alex realized that the crew of the Harmony was losing the fight. Commander Voss's voice came over the intercom, but now it sounded scared instead of angry. "All crew members, we are being boarded by unknown hostile forces. Their technology is beyond anything we have encountered before. Fight with everything you have." Alex looked at Koda and saw that the dog was no longer just a pet or a companion. Something had changed in those intelligent eyes. Koda looked like he was ready for war, and Alex realized that maybe his four-legged friend was more than anyone had imagined. The sounds of battle were getting closer to their section of the ship. Alex checked his weapon and prepared to defend himself, but he knew that he was just one rookie soldier against an army of unknown enemies. However, when he looked at Koda again, he felt a strange sense of confidence. Maybe they were not as helpless as everyone thought. The explosions were getting louder and closer as Alex and Koda made their way through the corridors of the Harmony. Emergency lights flickered on and off, casting strange shadows on the walls. The ship was shaking constantly from enemy weapons, and Alex could hear the sounds of metal being torn apart somewhere above them. Alex had decided to head toward the engineering section, because he thought it might be safer there. The enemy soldiers would probably focus on taking control of the bridge and the weapon systems first. But as they moved through the ship, Alex realized that nowhere was really safe. There were signs of battle everywhere, with broken walls, damaged equipment, and scorch marks from energy weapons. When they reached the engineering section, Alex found the entrance blocked by debris from a collapsed ceiling. He could hear sounds of fighting on the other side but could not see what was happening. As he tried to find another way around, he heard footsteps coming from behind them. Alex turned around and saw 3 enemy soldiers walking down the corridor toward them. The soldiers were tall and thin with gray skin that looked like metal. They wore armor that seemed to be alive, constantly changing colors and patterns. Their weapons were long and curved with energy crackling along the edges. "Stay back, boy," Alex whispered to Koda, but the dog had already moved into position between Alex and the enemy soldiers. The first enemy soldier pointed his weapon at Alex and made a sound that might have been speaking in some alien language. Alex raised his own weapon and tried to aim, but his hands were shaking with fear. He had trained for combat, but this was his first real battle, and the enemy looked much more dangerous than anything he had practiced against. What happened next was so fast that Alex almost could not believe it. Koda launched himself forward with incredible speed, moving like a furry missile toward the first enemy soldier. The dog's enhanced muscles propelled him through the air faster than Alex had ever seen any animal move. The enemy soldier tried to turn his weapon toward Koda, but the dog was already on him. Koda's teeth, which had been strengthened by genetic modifications, tore through the alien armor like it was made of paper. The soldier's weapon fell to the floor as Koda knocked him down and finished him with ruthless efficiency. The second enemy soldier fired his weapon at Koda, but the dog was already moving again. Alex watched in amazement as Koda seemed to predict where the energy beam would go and jumped out of the way at exactly the right moment. The dog landed behind the second soldier and attacked from an angle that the alien could not defend against. Alex realized that he was just standing there watching instead of helping. He aimed his weapon at the third enemy soldier and fired. His shot hit the alien in the shoulder and spun him around. Before the enemy could recover, Koda was there to finish the job. The entire fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. 3 enemy soldiers who had been winning battles all over the ship were now dead in the corridor. Alex stared at the bodies, and then at Koda, who was breathing heavily but showed no signs of injury. "How did you do that?" Alex asked the dog, but Koda was already moving toward the damaged entrance to the engineering section. Alex followed and found that Koda had discovered a small gap in the debris that was just big enough for them to squeeze through. On the other side, they found a group of crew members who were trapped and surrounded by more enemy soldiers. Alex could see Commander Voss crouched behind a broken computer console. The commander's armor was cracked, and he was bleeding from several wounds. Near him were 2 Valdorians whose crystal thought processors were flickering weakly. A group of Inhali were huddled in a corner with their skin colors flashing in patterns that Alex had learned meant extreme fear. The enemy soldiers had the crew members surrounded and were slowly closing in for the kill. Alex counted at least 6 of the gray-skinned aliens and knew that his small weapon would not be enough to save everyone. But Koda was already moving again. The dog seemed to understand the tactical situation perfectly without needing any orders from Alex. He circled around behind the enemy soldiers while Alex provided covering fire from the entrance. What Alex saw next changed everything he thought he knew about combat. Koda did not just attack randomly like a wild animal. Instead, he moved with the precision of a trained soldier who understood strategy and timing. When Alex fired his weapon to distract one enemy soldier, Koda would attack a different one from behind. When Koda drew the attention of several enemies, Alex would move to a new position and fire from an unexpected angle. They were not fighting as a human and a dog working together. They were fighting as a single unit with 2 different sets of abilities. Alex's weapon and tactical training combined with Koda's speed and enhanced senses created something that was more effective than either of them could have been alone. The enemy soldiers, who had been winning every battle on the ship, suddenly found themselves confused and outmaneuvered. They were used to fighting opponents who followed logical patterns and predictable strategies. But Alex and Koda were fighting with pure instinct and trust, making split-second decisions that no computer could calculate. One by one, the enemy soldiers fell. Some were taken down by Alex's accurate shooting, others by Koda's lightning-fast attacks. but most were defeated by the combination of both working together in perfect harmony. When the last enemy soldier was down, Alex and Coda stood in the middle of the engineering section, breathing heavily. The crew members they had saved were staring at them with expressions of shock and disbelief. Commander Voss struggled to his feet, using his forearms to push himself up from behind the broken console. His red eyes were wide with surprise as he looked at Alex and Coda. "How?" the commander asked in a voice that was barely above a whisper. "How did you two do that?" "The soldiers defeated my best warriors. They have technology that adapts to any attack we make. They should have been impossible to beat." Alex looked down at Coda, who was sitting next to him with his tongue hanging out like a normal dog again. But Alex could see something different in the dog's eyes now. There was an intelligence there that went beyond what any alien species had recognized. "I think they never fought a pack before," Alex said, still trying to understand what had happened. "Every species in the galaxy fights alone or with technology. But humans and dogs evolved together. We learn to hunt together and think together. We are not just two fighters working together, we are one team with two different bodies." Commander Voss nodded slowly, his expression changing from surprise to something that looked like respect. "You may be right, Rookie, but we are not safe yet. There are more enemy soldiers on the ship, and they will be looking for us soon." Alex checked his weapon and found that he still had some energy left. Coda was already moving toward the exit, his enhanced senses telling him which direction they needed to go. "Then we better get moving," Alex said. "We have a ship to save." As they prepared to leave the engineering section, Alex realized that something fundamental had changed. He was no longer just a rookie who had been assigned to watch empty space. He and Coda had become something new, something that the galaxy had never seen before. And they were just getting started. Alex and Coda moved through the damaged corridors of the Harmony with the surviving crew members following behind them. The ship was a maze of broken walls, sparking electrical systems, and debris scattered everywhere. The enemy soldiers had done terrible damage, but Alex could hear sounds of fighting still coming from other sections, which meant some of the crew was still alive and fighting. Commander Voss was having trouble walking because of his injuries, but he refused to let anyone help him. His pride as a Thrakari warrior would not allow him to show weakness in front of his crew. The two Valdorians who had survived were trying to use their crystal processors to analyze the enemy tactics, but the crystals kept flickering and failing. "Technology makes no sense," one of the Valdorians said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "The enemy weapons adapt to our defenses faster than we can change our strategies. It is like they can predict what we will do before we do it." "That is because they have been fighting the same way for thousands of years," Alex replied as he checked around a corner for enemy soldiers. "Every advanced species in the galaxy uses the same basic approach to combat. You analyze your enemy, develop a strategy, and then execute it with precision. But what if your enemy can adapt faster than you can plan?" The Inhali who were with them flashed confused patterns of light on their skin. Their species had never encountered an enemy that could not be reasoned with or defeated through superior technology. The whole situation was beyond their understanding. They reached a junction in the corridor where they could go in 3 different directions. Coda sniffed the air and then looked at Alex with an expression that clearly said he wanted to go left. Alex had learned to trust the dog's enhanced senses completely. "This way," Alex said, pointing left. "Coda can smell other survivors." They followed the left corridor until they reached the medical bay. The doors were sealed shut, but Alex could hear voices inside. He pressed the communication button next to the door. "This is Lieutenant Reed. Is anyone in there?" "Alex," came a familiar voice. "This is Dr. Lin. We are barricaded in here with about 20 survivors. Can you get us out?" Dr. Lin was one of the few other humans on the ship, and she worked as the chief medical officer. Alex had only met her a few times, but she had always been kind to him and Coda. He was relieved to hear that she was still alive. "Stand back from the door," Alex called out. "I am going to try to open it." The door controls had been damaged, but Alex managed to get them working by rerouting power from a nearby system. When the doors opened, he saw Dr. Lin and a group of crew members from different species all crowded together in the medical bay. Dr. Lin was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She rushed over to Alex and Coda with a smile of relief on her face. "Thank goodness you are both safe. We heard the fighting and thought everyone in this section was dead." "How many survivors are there?" Alex asked. "About 20 in here, Doctor," Lin replied. "But we lost contact with the bridge an hour ago. The enemy soldiers have taken control of most of the ship." Alex looked around at the survivors and realized that they were all looking at him with expressions of hope and expectation. Somehow, the rookie who had been assigned to watch empty space had become their leader. The thought was both frightening and inspiring. "We need to reach the bridge and try to contact other coalition ships," Alex said. "But first, I need to explain something to all of you. The enemy soldiers are not unbeatable. They can adapt to any individual fighting style, but they have never faced a coordinated pack attack." Commander Voss raised one of his forearms to interrupt. "What do you mean by pack attack, rookie? We have been fighting as a group this whole time." "No, sir, you have been fighting as individuals who happen to be in the same place," Alex replied. "Each species uses their own fighting style without really coordinating with the others. The Thrakari charge straight ahead, the Valdorians analyze and plan, and the Anhali try to negotiate. But none of you are actually working together as a single unit." Alex pointed to Coda, who was sitting quietly next to him. "Coda and I fight as a pack. We do not plan our moves ahead of time or follow rigid strategies. Instead, we react to each other and adapt in real time. When I move, Coda knows exactly what I am going to do. When he attacks, I know exactly where to provide support. We are not two fighters working together, we are one fighter with two bodies." Dr. Lin nodded with understanding. "That makes sense. Humans and dogs evolved together on Earth. Your species learned to hunt as a team long before you developed advanced technology." "Exactly," Alex said, "and that is what we need to do now. Everyone needs to stop fighting like their individual species and start fighting like a pack. We need to trust each other and react to each other without thinking about it." The survivors looked at each other with uncertainty. They had spent their entire lives fighting and thinking in the ways that their species had developed over thousands of years. The idea of changing their approach in the middle of a battle was frightening, but Commander Voss, despite his injuries and pride, was the first to understand. "The rookie is right," he said in his deep voice. "Our traditional tactics have failed. Completely. If we want to survive, we need to try something new." Over the next few minutes, Alex explained his ideas to the group. Instead of each species using their own fighting style, they would coordinate their attacks like a pack of predators. The Thrakari would use their strength to create openings that the Valdorians could exploit with their analytical abilities. The Anhali would use their light patterns to confuse enemies while everyone else attacked from different angles. "But how do we coordinate without planning everything ahead of time?" asked one of the Valdorians. "Our processes need time to calculate. The optimal strategy: stop thinking and start feeling," Alex replied. "Watch what the others are doing and react instinctively. Trust your teammates to do the same thing. A pack does not need to plan every move because each member knows what the others will do. They practiced the new tactics for a few minutes using the empty medical bay as a training ground. At first, everyone was confused and kept falling back to their old fighting styles. But gradually they began to understand what Alex was trying to teach them. The Thrakari learned to watch for openings created by the Valdorians instead of just charging ahead. The Valdorians learned to use their analytical abilities to support the group instead of trying to solve everything alone. The Anhali discovered that their light patterns could be used to signal the others as well as confuse enemies, but it was still Alex and Coda who showed them how it should really work. When they demonstrated their fighting style, the other crew members could see the perfect coordination that came from years of trust and partnership. "Now I understand," Dr. Lin said with amazement. "You two are not just fighting together, you are thinking together. Your bond is deeper than any technology or strategy." Alex scratched behind Coda's ears and smiled. "That is what it means to be a pack. We are stronger together than we could ever be apart. The group was ready to move toward the bridge when the medical bay doors suddenly burst open. 3 enemy soldiers rushed in with their weapons raised and their armor already adapting to counter the tactics they expected to face, but instead of meeting individual fighters, using predictable strategies, they found themselves facing something completely new. The survivors attacked as a coordinated pack, each member supporting the others in ways that the enemy could not predict or adapt to. The battle was over in seconds. The enemy soldiers, who had been winning every fight on the ship, were defeated by a group of survivors who had learned to fight as one. The group of survivors moved through the ship toward the bridge using their new pack tactics. Every time they encountered enemy soldiers, they fought as a coordinated unit instead of individuals. The enemy forces, which had been winning every battle on the ship, found themselves confused and outmatched by this new style of combat. Alex and Coda led the way while the others followed their example. Commander Voss, despite his injuries, fought with renewed energy as he learned to coordinate with the Valdorians and Inhali. Dr. Lin stayed in the middle of the group, treating wounded crew members and keeping everyone focused on their goal. As they got closer to the bridge, they could hear the sounds of a major battle taking place. Energy weapons were firing constantly, and they could hear the voices of crew members shouting orders and warnings. The enemy had clearly taken control of the bridge, but some of the original crew was still fighting. When they reached the final corridor before the bridge, Alex held up his hand to stop the group. Through the open doorway, he could see the bridge area, which was filled with smoke and flashing lights. At least 10 enemy soldiers were positioned around the room, their adaptive armor constantly changing colors and patterns. In the center of the bridge stood the largest enemy soldier Alex had ever seen. This creature was almost 9 feet tall, with armor that looked more advanced than the others. Its weapon was a long curved blade that crackled with energy, and its eyes glowed with an intelligence that seemed both ancient and cruel. "That must be their commander," whispered Commander Voss. "If we can defeat him, the others might retreat." But Alex could see that several crew members were still alive on the bridge, including some officers who were hiding behind damaged control panels. Any attack would have to be carefully planned to avoid hitting their own people. "We need to create a distraction," Alex said. "Something that will draw their attention away from the crew members who are still alive." Commander Voss stood up straighter, his warrior pride overcoming his injuries. "I will charge straight at their commander. My honor as a Thurkari demands that I face him in single combat." "No, sir," Alex said firmly. "That is exactly the kind of predictable tactic they expect. Their commander will adapt to your fighting style within seconds, and you will be killed." Commander Voss looked angry at being contradicted by a rookie, but Dr. Lin put her hand on his arm. "Alex is right. We have seen what happens when we fight them the old way. We need to trust the new tactics." Alex studied the bridge layout and began to form a plan. The enemy commander was standing in the center of the room where he could see all approaches, but his attention was focused on the crew members who were still hiding behind the control panels. "Here is what we are going to do," Alex explained to the group. "We will enter from 3 different directions at the same time. Commander Voss and the Thurkari will create noise and movement on the left side. The Valdorians and Inhali will coordinate an attack from the right. Coda and I will go straight down the middle." "That sounds like suicide," said one of the Valdorians. "The enemy commander will kill you before you get close enough to attack." "Not if everyone does their job correctly," Alex replied. "Remember, we are not 3 separate groups fighting individually. We are one pack attacking from multiple directions. Every move we make should support the others." They moved into position outside the bridge. Alex could feel his heart beating fast as he prepared for what might be his final battle. But when he looked at Coda, he saw complete confidence in the dog's intelligent eyes. They had come too far to give up now. "Ready?" Alex whispered to the others. Commander Voss nodded grimly. The Valdorians' crystal processors were glowing brightly as they prepared to coordinate their attack. The Inhali had dimmed their skin colors to nearly invisible levels. "Now," Alex shouted. The attack began with Commander Voss and two other Thrakari warriors charging onto the bridge from the left side. They roared their battle cries and fired their weapons, drawing the attention of most of the enemy soldiers. But instead of charging straight at the nearest enemies like they normally would, they moved in patterns that supported the overall attack plan. At the same time, the Valdorians and Inhali attacked from the right side. The Valdorians used their analytical abilities to identify weak points in the enemy formation, while the Inhali created confusing light patterns that made it difficult for the enemies to aim their weapons properly. Alex and Coda ran straight down the middle of the bridge toward the enemy commander. The huge creature turned to face them with his energy blade raised, but he was not prepared for what happened next. Instead of attacking the commander directly, Alex and Coda split up at the last second. Alex rolled to the left while Coda jumped to the right. The enemy commander's blade sliced through the air where Alex had been a moment before, but now he was facing two opponents coming from different directions. The commander's armor began to adapt to counter Alex's weapon and Coda's attacks, but it could not adapt to both at the same time. Every time the armor changed to defend against one threat, it became vulnerable to the other. But the real key to their success was not just Alex and Coda working together. The entire pack was coordinating their attacks perfectly. When the enemy commander turned to face Alex, Commander Voss and his warriors attacked from behind. When the commander spun around to defend against the Thrakari, the Valdorians and Inhali struck from the side. The enemy commander, who had probably never lost a battle in his entire life, found himself surrounded by opponents who fought with a unity he had never encountered before. His adaptive armor, which had made him nearly invincible against individual fighters, was useless against a coordinated pack attack. The battle lasted only a few minutes. When the enemy commander fell, the other enemy soldiers on the bridge seemed to lose their will to fight. Some retreated toward their ships, while others simply stopped fighting and waited to be captured. Alex stood in the center of the bridge, breathing heavily and looking around at the damage. Several crew members emerged from behind the control panels where they had been hiding. They looked at Alex and Coda with expressions of amazement and gratitude. "How did you do it?" asked one of the bridge officers. "We have been fighting these creatures for hours and could not even slow them down. We learned to fight as a pack instead of as individuals," Alex replied. "Every species in the galaxy has focused on developing their own unique abilities, but nobody ever learned how to truly coordinate with other species." Commander Voss walked over to Alex, moving slowly because of his injuries. The proud Thrakari warrior looked down at the young human and his dog with an expression that Alex had never seen before. It was respect. "Rookie," Commander Voss said, in his deep voice, "I owe you an apology. I thought you were just another weak human who did not belong on my ship. I was wrong." Alex felt a mixture of pride and relief wash over him. "Thank you, sir. But I could not have done it without Coda and all of you. That is what it means to be a pack." Over the next few hours, the surviving crew members worked together to repair the ship's communication systems and contact other coalition vessels. When the rescue ships arrived, they found the Harmony damaged but intact with most of its crew still alive. The story of how a rookie human and his dog had saved the ship spread quickly throughout the coalition. Alex found himself promoted to lieutenant commander and assigned to a new position training other crews in pack tactics. Coda received official recognition as the first non-human to be awarded the Coalition Medal of Honor, but more importantly, the entire galaxy's understanding of humans began to change. They were no longer seen as the newest and weakest members of the Coalition. Instead, they were recognized as the species that had brought something unique and valuable to the stars, the ability to form deep bonds with other life forms and fight. As a coordinated unit, standing on the observation deck of the newly repaired Harmony, Alex looked out at the stars while scratching behind Coda's ears. The dog's tail wagged contentedly as he enjoyed the attention from his human partner. "Good boy," Alex said quietly. "We showed them what a pack can do." Other crew members walked by and nodded respectfully to both Alex and Coda, the Thrakari warriors, saluted them as equals. The Valdorians tilted their crystal heads in acknowledgement. The Inhali flashed bright patterns of respect and admiration on their skin. Alex smiled as he realized that they had accomplished something more important than just winning a battle. They had shown the galaxy that evolution was not just about developing better technology or stronger individual abilities. Sometimes the greatest strength came from the bonds between different species working together as one. The galaxy would never underestimate a human and their four-legged partner again. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other species were beginning to wonder what other surprises the humans might have in store for them.